Alexie Young. I was actually born in LA to a Belizean family and was raised from the age of 5 on the west side of Chicago. So I'm actually a North Lawndale transplant. When I was living in the Austin area on the west side, and I'm always repping the west side no matter where I go, I had the opportunity of going to North Lawndale College Prep, the Spaulding, the Christiana campus. So that's kind of where my roots began in North Lawndale. So walking up and down 16th Street to go to the corner stores for, 25-cent chips, because it was 25 cents when I was, I don't know what's happening with inflation now. But I also remember walking down Ogden where there was just all lots. Everywhere I would walk down Ogden, it was simply just vacant lots. And we would walk down Ogden just to get to the Lawndale Community Church, where they had a basketball court available for us to practice there, because the school was so small we didn't have a basketball court or a gym inside of the school. So my roots started back then, but as I became an adult, I began painting after my son Bradley, who's sitting on the table back there. Hey, Brad. He's embarrassed. But after Bradley was born about 9 years ago, I started to use art as a mechanism to deal with stress, and also just like transitioning into motherhood, because clubbing was not a thing to do anymore. So what do you do when you have none of your recreations that you were used to? So I used painting as a way to deal with stress, and I realized how beneficial it was for me. And I realized that the process of painting was very spiritual. And I wouldn't harp on the finished product, but more so focused on the process itself. So I wanted to share that, and I decided a few years ago that I wanted to start a business. Sometimes we get a download from, the universe, and we have this crazy idea, right? So I decided that I wanted to host workshops and do, painting classes, or create opportunities for people who don't necessarily think that they are creative, but they would appreciate that meditative aspect of creating art, right? So a couple years ago, I started asking around, looking for a storefront. I don't know why I thought I could afford to run a business and get a storefront, but I started looking for a storefront in North Lawndale, because at the time I was actually living here in the area as well. And so I met Richard Townsell through a good friend of mine, Skylar Dees is somewhere here. But I met Richard Townsell, who started to show some of the commercial spaces that were available in the area, and that's where I stumbled upon the MLK Exhibit Center. So I had a chance to view some of the other commercial spaces on 16th and Hamlin, which is where the Legacy Apartments are. It's about 6 commercial spaces and about 40 residential units, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But I had a chance to look at the empty commercial spaces, and I was like, this is nice. Yeah, that's nice. But then when I saw the MLK Exhibit Center, I was like, oh, this is really nice. This is amazing. I had no idea it was there. And so over time, I had the opportunity to work within that space, inviting people from all over the city to come and do painting classes there. And when they would walk in, they would say the same thing. Oh my gosh, this is nice. I didn't know this was on the west side. And when you walk into the MLK Exhibit Center, you'll see a lot of photographs of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King, his wife, pictures of himself and his children. And that moment that I decided that I wanted to be the point person to run that space. It was because I was so inspired by the history there that I had not ever known. I did not know that in 1966, Dr. King came to Chicago. He was invited here also because there was a lot of other civil rights movements that were happening across the city of Chicago. And so they definitely wanted to invite him here. So when he got here to fight against slum lords and housing inequality, he was actually like really shocked at the conditions in which black people had to live, or people of color had to live in 1966. So as a part of his protest against housing inequality, he decided that he would move into an apartment that was located right on 16th and Hamlin, which I did not know. And it was poor conditions. Rats, paint peeling off the walls, just really, really harmful conditions for any human to live in, right? And so he decided to stay here with his wife. And so some of the photos, speak to his time here. So that was in 1966. So in their efforts to fight against housing inequality in 1968, it was really powerful to see that the Fair Housing Act was moved forward in 1968, which is also the same year that Dr. King was assassinated. The crazy thing about that is I have been told that North Lawndale was flourishing with businesses, right? And when Dr. King was assassinated, a lot of us know, and I'm an elder millennial, so I was not there, but there has been a lot of people that I've met who talked about the riots back then. And the riots was one of the things that kind of burned down a lot of the businesses that were available and thriving back in the 60s. So as a part of Dr. King's legacy, I often think about what am I doing to celebrate all of the work that's been done before me. And I've had such a great opportunity to collaborate with so many people here. I've been supported by SAIC. Anytime I need to figure out something when it comes to art, I call Heyman Cross. He's the person that I call when I need to troubleshoot ideas. I'm a part of the NLCCC Arts and Culture Committee. And I think, was that you, Heyman, that mentioned that North Lawndale feels like a college campus? Does anybody feel that way that's from here? Like you go to the Green Tomato and everybody's there, We, at the MLK Exhibit Center, we also host lots of entrepreneurs who have ideas and they need a pop-up space. So one of our initiatives is that we want to make that space available for a very affordable rental rate for entrepreneurs to do pop-ups there. So oftentimes we'll have really cool events like whether it's karaoke nights. Sometimes it is, for example, last night we had a young woman who's a realtor and she decided to have a paint or draw your dream home. So she used that opportunity to talk to first-time home buyers, but also in collaboration with creating art at the same time. And I thought that was really innovative. But all sorts of things like that I'm so used to traveling for, I feel like we're starting to create the amenities that we don't necessarily see here. There's a lot of neighborhoods that have restaurants, pubs, bars, really cool places to stop and shop. And I feel like we're creating that here. We're not complaining about what we don't have, we're creating what we want. And that's my favorite thing about North Lawndale.